Week 16 in the books.
Did football happen today?
Season's already over, Drew. I feel like it's like week 5.
Was this
Season's
the Super Bowl?
over.
Was the Super Bowl happen?
Not yet, but the NFL season keeps flying by. And guys, welcome into Sports Around the Bar, where we're going to talk about all the action today, as well as the primetime games coming up. Thank you for joining us in this pivotal week in the NFL. I say it every week, but every week is pivotal in the NFL. There's some good games this week.
Finally, we know more
about these teams. But next week, we'll know more about them than we did before. No, it's a quick joke because I've been saying it for 3 weeks, but I said, going into last week, I was like, now we know who they are.
Now we do.
Now we do. And it started pretty early. Speaking of knowing who they are, do you want to start with Jameis Winston and the Bucs, or would you like to talk about the Houston Texans first? They are who we thought they were.
Chris, good to see you, man. He said, how about them Colts? You beat up a defenseless team, man. That's not very nice of you, Chris. God, mean. Frank, good to see you, man. John, good to see you. He says Raiders suck. He's already throwing blows. He's already out there throwing them.
But he can't be wrong. He's probably not wrong. Also, Sean, good to see you, man. He says he's not happy with the New England Patriots. I imagine anytime a team like the Patriots beats your team, you're not happy with them. But I sympathize, man. I do, because I think most of America was rooting on the Bills to finally run down the Patriots. But instead, we get the Patriots, 11 times running now? They've won the AFC East.
Must be tough.
What is it about these Eastern divisions that they're just terrible? Like, the NFC East, it's constantly rotating. You never know who's going to win the thing.
Yeah, but they're rotating.
At least they won a Super Bowl.
It's a little bit different.
And I guess you could say the AFC East has won some Super Bowls. But still, you look at these divisions, what is it about it? They can't put together good regular season football.
I don't know. John, good evening to you too, man. He's live from Galveston, Texas. Man, it's good to see you. Hope Texas is treating you well.
Absolutely. Let's start by talking about the Texans.
Let's do
Pretty good segue. This game, even though I look at their stats, and I watched it all. It was on Saturday morning. On paper, it didn't look impressive.
Did you even get up to watch it?
I did, magically. Something woke me up, and I was up for the kickoff.
It was my phone call.
Yeah.
Hey, man, football's magic. About to start.
But when you look at the Texans and the way that they played, even though they didn't light up the stats, they didn't put a bunch of big numbers on the score sheet. They still didn't need to because of all the early interceptions. I mean, Jameis Winston. What do we say? What do we say on Friday, Drew?
I don't know.
We want to see him have
I do know, but
a non-turnover game against a weaker secondary.
So tired of constantly playing this record over and over about Jameis Winston, where it's like, I want to say he's talented, but then you go off and you have 4 turnovers. You're not talented. I mean, you got an arm, you can throw the ball. Yeah, you might break the all-time passing yards in a season, but you can't stop turning the ball over, man. There is one stat line, and that's not even a stat line. It's more just a player that's on the Texans, Justin Reed.
Yep.
Their safety in that defense, and
essentially last man standing in the secondary.
And we talk a lot of crap about their defense, especially in their secondary part of it. He's playing really well.
He absolutely
is playing really well,
especially in the pivotal part of the season.
He's becoming a leader of that defense, and for any team that has to face him, the Texans in the postseason, that's a scary scenario to have a guy show up in a defense that you're like, man, it was weak until he showed up.
And I definitely agree with you. Look, I mean, Winston had thrown 2 interceptions before 5 minutes came off the clock, game time.
Pick 6 right off the bat.
The fact that the defense hung around in this game, when you're talking about going up against a playoff caliber team like the Texans, even though the Texans didn't light it up and they scored it a little bit early, they slowed them down afterward. They made a bunch of great strides. I think the most impressive thing I can say about Tampa Bay in this game is how great the defense played against the Texans.
Yeah.
Because it would have been pretty easy just to give it up.
Well, John's already sitting here saying, he says Texans coach, which is Bill O'Brien, is terrible and is wasting all the talent.
Well, he's won the AFC South 4 times. I mean, you can argue that he hasn't beat the top teams. He's almost like the Harbaugh of the NFL, where he does well in some of these games where he shouldn't, and he's got the program back going where it should be, and then you play some of the tough teams, and it's not always quite what you want to see. Last week was a good week against the Titans, though. This team just hung with the Saints, and you beat them. Like, they controlled most of that game. I don't want to say that the Texans... I think we're kind of on the borderline of you being right and you being wrong in that one, John, because...
I don't know if O'Brien's all the blame that you can give it to him, but, I mean, it's...
You would have liked to see it a little bit more, right? Exactly. You want to see the staple point wins where you can point to it. Like this year, they beat New England. That was a big win for them. How long have they been struggling to get over that hump? The question is going to be, can they kind of convert it going forward now that the team is coming together? Because that team doesn't stick around forever.
Right. And, well, good to see you. He's with you. He says that Bucs D looked amazing. is this a scenario that they could push this into the next season? And you're talking about a strength of this team, which used to be offensively throwing the ball, might be a strength now defensively. And this is something they could grow on next season is we now have a strong defense, and we just have to fix our offensive woes.
Well, I like Todd Bowles, and I like his scheme. I do have some questions because, I like Shaq Barrett. He's having a tremendous season, but you got to remember, this is the same guy Denver let go last season. Is this a one and done, or is this more of, business as usual? Now he's got out of Denver. He's getting his chance to shine, and he's looking really good doing it. I don't know. I'm not sure which way to bet on Shaq Barrett, but you like what you saw this year out of him. When I say you, I mean everybody likes what they say. Anytime you get 10-plus sacks, you're like,
right,
been a pretty good year.
Right.
On the other hand, you talk about the rest of the secondary. I don't know that long-term they've done a lot to fix it. Maybe they get some more development, but I think it's time to bring in even more players and just keep cycling those deck chairs until you find an arrangement that works.
Right.
But yeah, I think right now, especially if Winston moves on, you have to form the identity of we play good defense, and Todd Bowles is going to fix that until he gets his next head coaching job, which might still be a while because I don't think anyone's rushing out there after his stint with the Jets to get him back as a head coach.
Right. Frank says, sorry, Drew, but Patty's going down tonight. No, he's not. Just wanted you to know that. Jacob says, Raiders staying alive.
You going to sing it?
No, I wasn't going to. You can.
You were thinking about it. And Sean wants to know, he says, a question for me. What is the deal with Eli Manning? He's old and not going anywhere. Not going to be a starting quarterback. He's 39. I think he's going to hang up the cleats when nobody's supremely interested in bringing him in as their starting quarterback.
Especially with the comment, I want to be a starter.
Yeah, and you look at all the young quarterbacks coming out in the draft, and I think there's going to be a lot of teams that are like, meh. I could have Cam Newton. I could have Andy Dalton. I might have Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota on the board. I think I'd take any one of those guys over Eli Manning at this point. Ryan Fitzpatrick might get cut from the Dolphins, even though I think he's going to live out that contract for the next year. There's going to be a pretty deep free agent market when you think about how years usually go in the NFL for free agent quarterbacks. There's going to be a bunch of veterans.
Chris, good to see you, man. He said Week 16 was interesting. Yes, it was. Will says tag Shaq and see if he is a one-hit wonder or not.
Well, it's one season, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's a contract year. Didn't they bring him in on a one-year deal? I don't remember how long of a deal they gave him from Denver, but I think it was a one-year gig. And he was playing, I think he had, 3 sacks in Denver?
I don't disagree with you, Will. Tagging is not a terrible decision if his contract is up and he needs it. But that also leaves a bitter taste in your mouth as well. And let's not forget, Shaq was not drafted by the Bucs. He was drafted by the Broncos.
Right.
They signed him for a contract, but now, you could tag him and keep him there, but how long can you tag him for? Maybe that leaves a bitter taste. Maybe he's like, hey, I gave my 1 year. I proved it to you. I'm young enough. Sign me for a contract for
exactly.
2 years.
And on top of that, you got to commit a lot of financial resources in one single year. That's one thing the Buccaneers have not had lately is a lot of free agent money. I don't think they're going to have the cap space to go and just devote it to tagging someone like Shaq Barrett. I think the long-term deal, even though it's risky, is probably the better option here because you'll probably be able to string more of that money down the line. And that's exactly what Tampa Bay needs right now is to kick that can as far down the street as they can money-wise.
Jonathan, good to see you. He's rooting for the Eagles, obviously, as our
big win for him.
As our huge Eagles fan as he is. Scott says,
sorry we ever doubted him.
Scott says the human interception machine Winston strikes again yesterday with 4 picks. Yeah, it was a lot. Ron also throwing daggers at you, rooting for the Saints.
No, there's no daggers. The Saints had something to play for this with the Steelers losing their game against the Jets. It was totally meaningless for the Titans. But I'm not bitter.
Daggers.
Oh, there were daggers. You could see it in his eyes, even though you can't see him. I'm with you. Also, Bees says the Titans got jobbed. I agree with you, man. The Titans... I'm going to play the clip. We're actually going to do something we don't normally do, and I'm going to play you a clip to show you just how bad of a call it was, because this, when we talk about teams...
No, we're not, Google. Yeah. Don't worry about that. Jake doesn't know what he's talking about.
When we talk about teams getting screwed because of who they're playing and what their relationship is, I want to show you exactly what I mean. So we'll put it up to you, and we'll put it up to a vote to see who's right about that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Chris is excited about his 49ers. Big win for them, but again, I think... the Titans getting screwed kind of hurt them because now the Saints are just as much in the race as they are. I think they're all still tied at, 12-3 at this point. So if the Saints win, 49ers lose, I'm not sure how the breakdown is between Seahawks and Saints for first seed, but
I don't know.
At that point, the 49ers would fall to a wild card. What a tough spot to be in when you're 12-3.
Jonathan says, what can he say except he told you, fly, Eagles, fly.
You did. And I think I remember us saying we don't feel great about either of these teams.
Nope. That's exactly what I said.
And that's exactly what I said, too. But this is a big win, and you were the one saying they were going to put the dog mask on. They came out and fought for a bitter, bitter victory. My question is, first off, should they be worried about the Giants when we talk about how closely they've played some of their in-division rivals lately? And second, is this a team that going into the playoffs has the ability to upset somebody kind of like the Cowboys do? I think the Cowboys have the chance to upset somebody in the playoffs. With the shape the Eagles are in right now, I don't know that they're that team.
Will says that Winston's already confirmed to be staying in Tampa, and yes, Shaq was on a one-year deal. I know. It's
always confirmed until that next better option shows up in free agency.
I said I know there's rumors around it. I don't know if anything was confirmed, but hey, Will, you're a Bucs fan. You definitely listen into it a lot more than I do. But
I've seen articles on both. I've seen it where they're dismissive and they're like, Winston's done here. I've seen some where they're where Bruce Arians is like, we like Winston, we want him to be here, and that's what you have to say. You have to say we want to keep him around until it's time to find another guy.
I just want you to know, Ron, again, said Saints. I think he is.
What else do you need to
daggers.
say? What else do you need to say? I know. Don't worry. I'll have my explosion here in a couple minutes when we get to that game. But until now, all I can say is they're a great team. It was a great battle. I'm confused that Jerome Boger was the ref for this game because this probably the worst ref crew was on one of the better games of the week. I don't know why you don't put it on Jags, Falcons, or a game that doesn't mean anything. I mean, you've got the Bengals and Dolphins. You've got the Colts and Panthers who are both out of it. You got the Giants and Redskins. You could have put this crew anywhere, and you put them on a game where both teams are still theoretically playing from playoff position.
Got a couple comments and a question here. Chris says Cardinals handled the Seahawks at home, and Scott says it was a trap game for the Seahawks.
Absolutely.
Sean says, what was my opinion of Eli Manning for next year? The only reason I didn't answer is because I completely agree with what Jake said. I didn't feel like it was a second, or I need my opinion on there when I agree exactly with what Jake said.
And this is the president of the Eli Manning fan club. So.
Yeah, huge one. And then Jonathan goes, how can you say that when we just held Dallas to no touchdowns? Because
Dallas
are the
is
only
streaky.
Defense to hold Dallas to no touchdowns, man. And you guys are what now 8-7? You don't look good. You got a lot of injuries. Yeah, it was a great game for you, but do you really think that people are terrified of the Eagles in the postseason?
Can they keep it up? Can they keep it up? I mean, we said that about the Eagles going into 2017 when they won.
Do you beat the Vikings?
No. Heads up, no. I don't think so.
I mean, do you beat the Saints?
No.
Do you beat the 49ers?
You can go down the list, Drew. The answer is no.
I mean,
but I would probably say the same about the Cowboys. I would just pick the Cowboys before I pick the Eagles. Like if you told me Cowboys or Eagles who upset somebody, I'd say Cowboys.
And that's I'm not even.
I wasn't trying to take away your dramatic effect. But.
I'm not even gonna say that. I mean, at this point, Eagles look better. Eagles are a better team than the Cowboys, but they got to win. They've dropped a lot more game, or not a lot more, but one more game, and now they have to win instead. They could have just won the division if they would have, played better this season, but they didn't. So, I'm not.
Obviously, he's saying, how can I say that about the Giants? Didn't the Giants just push them into overtime last time they played?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, he clarified. He clarified.
So,
didn't the Giants just push the Eagles into overtime? And it took, it took, I don't want to say a miracle, but it took a great play by the Eagles towards the end of the game to get the touchdown to win in overtime against the Giants because they were way down, and it took a big comeback and then a great play in overtime for the Eagles to win. So that's how I can say that. I mean, they didn't play well the first time. That's how I can say it. I mean, yeah, the Giants don't look good, but they just put 42 points on the board. I don't love the Redskins, but that's still a little bit of rhythm. You're going to get Daniel Jones. It's not going to be Eli Manning this time. I think you should be concerned. I know the record isn't good, but it's still the NFL, and it's a divisional rival. I think the Eagles need to be worried about next week before they're celebrating and dancing, saying we're into the playoffs.
We have a Brian Roper sighting. Haven't seen this guy in a while. He said, so disappointing being a Cowboys fan, man. It's tough, but hey, it's not over. Got to win next week, and if the Eagles lose, there you go. You're in the playoffs.
Exactly. You need the Eagles to do you a favor, or I should say you need the Giants to do you a favor. But just like I said with the Eagles, I don't know that I trust the Cowboys. The only thing I could say is that I believe that the Cowboys have done a good job of bullying bad teams. And I think the Redskins are still a bad team. Even though I picked them to win this week, and I was wrong in that regard, I still don't think they're great. And I think the Cowboys should be able to handle business. The question is going to be, do the Eagles have one more in them?
Will wants to know if Drew Brees wins it all this year, does he pull an Elway and call it quits after winning a Super Bowl? I'm assuming that's what he means.
Yeah, interesting question. But I think the answer is probably no. I think he's incredibly competitive. He's chasing Tom Brady for the touchdown record. Unless Tom Brady hangs it up, I think Drew Brees, as long as he's semi-healthy, is going to want to keep playing.
Yeah.
I think he wants to get to that record. Everyone wants to be the best. Because if he retires now, everyone's going to say, oh, well, Tom Brady made it longer than you did, and he probably throws more touchdowns at the end of his career because you retired a year or two ahead of him. Why would you do it? The team's at the top. It's at the apex. Even if you win this year, the Saints probably aren't going anywhere. They don't have a ton of huge... I mean, Michael Thomas is there. Alvin Kamara is there. The offensive line's relatively intact. They're not going to have any huge cycling that they're just going to be a bad team after this year. Especially if Drew Brees sticks around.
Man, all these comments are great, but we got to get through these games. So let's go on to the next game. Tough loss for the Bucs. A good win for the Texans, even though it wasn't pretty. Still a good win. Bills went on the road to face New England. It was right there. They were in the 10-yard line to tie it up, go into overtime. Of course, they held the lead for a while in this game too. It was right there. They could have had it. Man, I thought I was going to see an upset, and I thought I was going to see the Patriots kind of fall from their glory, and then they stopped them.
New England against the Bills, Belichick against the young quarterback. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't sweating it a little bit, but I just saw it coming, Drew. I just saw it coming.
Is there bad play calling going on with Sean McDermott and this offense? Because there's a lot of Bills fans out there that just go, you don't call some of these plays in such a crucial game. This is week 1, week 2, week 3 mistakes of play calling. This is not week 16 mistakes.
No, you're right. You are right. It's not.
And this is a guy that we're talking about Coach of the Year too.
Yeah, I understand the criticism from Bills fans, but I think you fall in love with the identity. This is what we do, and sometimes it's not always the right situation. But the Bills say this is what we do, and they get kind of hog-tied by their own stubbornness. And I don't want to say that it hasn't helped them, because I think that stubbornness is the reason they're here. The run defense, the defense in general, the way they run the ball, the way they stay conservative, they don't take a lot of risks.
But can you say they've been like that forever now?
Well, yeah, basically. But even with McDermott, he was the same guy when he was in Carolina. I mean, you got to know what you're buying. That's all I can say. So I don't think the criticism is unwarranted, but I don't think that Bills fans need to be too critical of it, because would I like to see different things against the Patriots? Yeah, I would like to see them be a little more explosive. I would like to see a little bit more passes down the field. But you're playing a great defense. Your offensive line was losing up front a considerable amount. You don't want to put a still semi-inaccurate passer like Josh Allen is, or not the most accurate passer, under duress and having to hold the ball for 4.5 to 5 seconds. So, in that sense, I understand why McDermott did it.
Yeah.
I don't love it, but I understand it.
John says the Bills are capable of winning it all.
I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I told you, this is my fool's gold team of the year, Drew. I hit the one last year with the Chargers. I said they're not going to do it. The Bills are that team this year. They might beat the Texans when they play them round 1.
I still think that this is a team where you look at Josh Allen and you see moments of shine, like 2, 3, 4, 5 passes roughly in a game. Each game, you're like, wow, look at that kid. Look how he can throw the ball. And then he gives you about 15 other terrible throws. You're like, you need someone in there telling you how
he needs polish.
Who could do it. And it's if Sean McDermott can't do it, you have wasted a pick with Josh Allen.
Well, you got to remember, McDermott's also a defensive guy.
And I get that, but regardless, he's the head coach, so he's the guy that's...
Well, at that point, it's staffing.
He's the one that's going to get all the flack. That's what I'm saying. He's got to bring somebody in to polish this guy and make him a pocket passer. Yeah, his legs are great, but... he is not a Lamar Jackson. He's not going to create so much space with his legs. Yes, he's a quick guy.
He does do a lot with his legs, and he's a bigger runner. He's almost, I think the better comparison is Cam Newton. You can get that kind of play out of him. And
Cam Newton's a better passer at this point.
But Cam was nowhere near polished coming into the league
That's
either.
what I'm talking
about. And Cam is still not
polished. You need to bring someone in to polish
that polish it. And I'm with you. I totally agree on that situation. But it's not going to happen in the short term. What I'm going to say is maximize the talent you have right now, number one. And number two, my other point to this, young quarterbacks tend to not have a lot of success in the playoffs. Yeah. Lamar Jackson last year. Deshaun Watson last year. The list goes on.
Second year, but yeah.
Well, exactly. This is Josh Allen's second year. Last year was Deshaun Watson's second year. He struggled in his playoff game against the Colts. I mean, that's what tends to happen. You almost have to lose in the playoffs once or twice before you're ready to succeed in the NFL. It's just there's such great competition. And you got these old guys that have been there and done that, aren't worried about these situations, that aren't going anywhere.
Before we get to the next game with the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, Sean, thanks for bringing it up, man, but we will not have a show on Tuesday. It's Christmas Eve. We want you guys and ourselves to enjoy the holiday season with our families, and unfortunately, we will not go on the show through the midweek at either Friday or Saturday. We haven't fully decided completely what the schedule is going to be like, and that's when we'll be back.
And John also says the AFC will win the Super Bowl. Well, Ravens, Patriots, Chiefs, they got some hard hitters out there. Hopefully Titans in there too, but we'll see what happens. They got to make the playoffs first. There are some good teams in the AFC. Then again, you look across the aisle.
There's a lot,
and all these like highly rated teams.
One division.
Yeah.
Well, the Rams got eliminated Saturday night by the San Francisco 49ers. A great game. A tough game. I called you right after that game. And, my discussion with you was about it ended up being about Jalen Ramsey coming in. Draft picks gone. He's in there arguing with another one of your draft picks of this year, throwing him under the bus in a postseason interview. Is this the kind of mentality that you're going to want and you're stuck with in 2020?
The idea is Wade Phillips is going to get this under control when you traded for him, right? You have the experienced defensive coordinator, been a head coach, been around the block, runs a great defense. You're going to bring him in with the younger guy. And Doug Marrone's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. It's Doug Marrone's fault. I could fix this. And then you ship those 2 first-round picks off, and you have just as much of a train wreck, it seems, heading into the team that they had. Well. Here's the crazy thing, Drew. I don't think they've given him a contract yet. Don't quote me on that, but even though they traded for him, they haven't renewed him yet. Would it be that wild to trade those picks and then let Jalen Ramsey walk because you're like, we don't need this cancer in our locker room, even though he's talented? And I know this year has not gone the way that we've seen Jalen Ramsey play in the past. Do you even consider?
He played better these last few games.
I know the GM probably isn't considering it because that's your head on that your head winds up on a silver plate at that point. The owner is like, you traded 2 first-round picks for a guy you let walk in free agency. But should they consider it? Should they consider letting him go, even though they just traded so much to bring him in? It's crazy to think about, but can you afford to have this kind of negative attitude in a locker room like the Rams have that, yes, you have good players. Yes, you have a good system, but you need a lot to get back on top. You've got to fix this offensive line. You need more help in the linebacking core. You need more help in the secondary. You need edge rushers. I mean, I like Dante Fowler, but I don't love Dante Fowler. They need more from the edge. Clay Matthews is not a long-term solution there.
No, and they did in the second half really show up, but is that more of a lack of the 49ers offensive line, who's just riddled with injuries throughout the year? They showed up. They started playing a lot better. I think it was 5 sacks in the second half. That's great. 6 altogether in the game, but this has not been the tale of the Rams defense all year long. It has been lacking. I think Aaron Donald has 12 sacks, and I know that's a lot for a defensive tackle.
Oh, it's amazing. Give me any other 12-sack D tackle, and you're like,
talking about a guy that hits around 20
yes.
At this time of the year, and so it is a lack of statistics if you talk about
even more than that. I don't want to put it all on Aaron Donald. I want to put it on everyone else because you know the game plan after he won Defensive Player of the Year and he had close to 20 sacks last season. Everyone's saying, time to stop Aaron Donald. I don't care what else happens. We're stopping Aaron Donald. But then it's on everybody else to step up.
They're not stopping
him. No, there's no stopping him. Okay, time to limit Aaron Donald. How about that?
Brian says he really wanted to see the Rams win that game. And Scott says he would love to see an underdog win the Super Bowl like a team who barely makes the playoffs.
Titans. I'm with you, Scott. I'm with you. Tennessee Titans, baby.
They were just the playoffs 2 years ago.
We barely make it, Drew. Bill O'Brien has more AFC championship or AFC divisional wins than the Titans do for their entire history since the AFC South started.
Let's have it.
It's game over, man.
Why don't the Chiefs win a Super Bowl? That'd be the best scenario right now.
They just made the playoffs. Yeah, the Chiefs haven't been there.
Just because the
Chiefs haven't been there.
Just because the AFC West sucks and we rule it doesn't mean that we should.
That's not our fault. We can't help that. Okay. Talking about the 49ers, we're starting to see a little bit of rust on them. I don't think it's time to panic just yet, but I want to see the defense step up. They were starting to show the statistics for it. The defense over the past 4 or 5 games has been anywhere but ideal, giving up somewhere close to 320 yards a game on average. Are you concerned about that? Or is this something that maybe the guard's down a little bit, or maybe the offense is playing better and it's not our job? We see that happen a lot. That happens a lot on defenses. I think the Titans are a good example of that. I think the Chiefs are a good example of that. I mean, Mahomes goes out and they look like a pretty good defense for 2 weeks.
And
then Mahomes comes back and they're like, he's back, baby.
No,
I got no
last 4 weeks we've been a great defense.
They have turned it on here recently, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, the Titans were the same way. Tannehill, as soon as he's come in, they're like,
There's concerns. There's concerns with this 49ers team. Like I said, the offensive line's banged up. They're allowing too many sacks. But I'll tell you this right now. If Jimmy G keeps playing the way he's playing, taking licks after licks, and still coming up and looking like a stud at the end of the day, this 49ers team is still one of the best teams in the NFL, let alone be in the NFC. Yes, there's issues, but you can literally say there's issues with every team in the playoffs at this point. Everyone's banged up. Everyone's got issues. This 49ers team, as much as I just said Jimmy G's playing like a stud, they will rely heavily on this run game. And if this run game wavers the wrong way during the postseason, that will be their downfall. But if you have all these running backs the way that they've all been playing all year long, I mean, you literally got your pick of 3 great running backs, it seems like. Any of them could go off. I think you're going to talk about a team that's probably in the Super Bowl this year.
I also think Shanahan could take somebody off the side of the road and say, hey, you're my running back, and they're going to look like a top NFL running back. But I'm with you. If you get any kind of running performance out of this team, the 49ers are still going to be the same force that they are. I want to see the defense play better. I want to see everyone stay healthy.
Yeah,
I want to see the offensive line play better.
I don't want to take anything away from Jared Goff. He played a great game, and I also brought up this in our conversation on the phone. Is I think Jared Goff lives and dies off of play action, and if there is no run game in L.A. with Todd Gurley, then you see Jared Goff struggle a little bit, and then you commented back, and I'll let you make that comment back to what
I think more than that, it's the offensive line. It's hard to run the play action when you're not given time because then you get those people in the backfield staring your quarterback in the face.
By play action.
I think it helps. I think play action helps everybody, right?
Which is a lot of quarterbacks. Yeah. But realistically,
whose life isn't better when you run the play action fake? Everybody. But I'm with you. I think Jared Goff has been limited without the play action effect. I also think he's been limited based on the offensive line play. Even take the play action out of it, you can't let a pocket passer be under this kind of pressure because he doesn't have the movement that a lot of other quarterbacks in the NFL have.
I mean, Dak Prescott during this game,
yes,
there's no run game. He could not do the play action.
Exactly.
It got limited, and that's an issue.
Good to see you, Frank.
You've also seen, of course, Goff and Prescott are not Drew Brees, but you've seen the run game fail for Drew Brees, and you still see him going out there and making passes. This is what you want from players, and when you give Jared Goff so much money, and the reason they're going to deal with this in the Dallas Cowboys is you got to have quarterbacks that can deal with the play action not being there and still producing at a high level.
Jags Falcons.
Let's do it.
Yuck. It's over now. That's all I can say. It's over now. How about Gardner Minshew?
I'm glad I put Freeman in my lineup for my fantasy.
Yeah.
Because I've been benching him.
Falcons pretty much ran this one. Julio had a great day. Freeman had a pretty good day. Matt Ryan had a pretty good day, throwing for almost 400 yards, even though he only threw 1 touchdown and a couple picks. I think the story out of this game is Gardner Minshew, 3 for 31. I mean, you're like 40% completion rate. You got to prove to me that you're the better quarterback than Nick Foles going into next year against a defense that, let's face it, has been playing better, but still has not been a good defense this year. Maybe I just wanted to see more from the stash. Is Minshew Mania over going into next year? Let's say they hired you tomorrow, Drew, and you're the head coach.
Yeah.
Are you going to are you thinking about Minshew as your starter, or are you back to Nick Foles day one right now? Yuck, right? But no, I think it has to be Foles. And maybe you disagree.
Have to be Foles.
I think you can have open competition, but I think Foles is for sure my front runner. And the reason I say that is not just because of the money, but it's because he's a Super Bowl MVP.
You fix the offensive line.
Yes, but they've been trying to do that.
Well,
and have been unable to do it.
It is easier said than done, but you fix the offensive line.
How many draft picks have they spent on it? They brought in Newell last year too, paid him a bunch of money to be their guard, and he's been pedestrian. They've drafted multiple first-round tackles, and it hasn't worked. I know.
Jamal Taylor.
But it hasn't worked. And the question is, when it doesn't work again, who's your starting quarterback? I don't know, Drew. I think
at this point it's Minshew. I mean, because your offensive line is struggling to keep your quarterback upright. You need a mobile quarterback. It's plain and simple.
I think you just run the max protect.
Is Dan
you get
Quinn,
2 receivers every play. 3
is
receivers.
Is Dan Quinn's job safe?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're good here. He's won a couple games, even though I think they've been better off getting Chase Young and putting a stud in that defense, someone that can actually rush the passer out there in Atlanta. Instead, they're going to get like the 7th pick, and we're going to feel good about it. It's a moral victory. We'll keep Dan Quinn.
They'll focus on that second.
And they won't get as good of a player. But that's okay. They're not going to get Jeff Okudah from Ohio State. But when they miss him, maybe they take the next best cornerback.
Yeah. Or maybe the next best pass
Or maybe it's the Iowa pass rusher. Espinoza, I think is his name. Yeah, the big boy that's been great for 4 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. All I can say about the Jaguars is bleh. And all I can say about the Falcons is less bleh. I don't know, Drew. This game, to me, which should have been the one Jerome Boger was reffing. That's my takeaway here.
Let's go to the next game. The Baltimore Ravens go on the road to face the Cleveland Browns. Let me just say this before you put your input in there. I actually thought Baker Mayfield played a decent game.
I did too.
And I also think when the game was on the line and he threw it to first of all, it was a terrible play call where they went for 2 after they scored that touchdown. Instead of kicking a field goal and making a 1-game possession, they wanted to do a 2-game. They missed this 2-point conversion, and it did fail. But by all means, Baker Mayfield put it right where the receiver could catch it. It went right through his hands. The receiver dropped it. That was not on Baker Mayfield, regardless if it was a terrible play call. You got to have players that catch the ball.
Can I swing the pendulum the other way and talk about the things I didn't like about the Browns?
Sure.
Because I do like basically Gardner Minshew's older brother, Baker Mayfield. I did like the way he played today. I have 2 things I want to go in on the Browns for in this one. Yes, they surprised me by scoring first, but I want to go in on the Cleveland fans that were flipping off Baker Mayfield and everything else when they lost this game. First off, I know not every Browns fan is this terrible, but I know that the Browns have a bunch of trash tier fans. Okay, that's all I can say. From the Mason Rudolph thing, where they're celebrating clubbing an opponent over the head with a helmet like some turds. That's all I can say. They matched the jerseys. To Odell Beckham, my other point here, going over there and screaming at Freddie Kitchens mid-game where you're watching him just yell at him and point and everything else. I thought we turned a corner with this franchise. I thought they were back, Drew. What happened, man? And I'm not trying to pile on. I'm really not, because they weren't going to win this game. They should. The fact that it was close is a victory. But how in a victory can you have this many losses as well? Because tell me this team's going to stay together next year. Tell me that Odell Beckham's going to be here in Brown again next year, and you're going to have fans that aren't ready to just turn tables and flip off your quarterback when they lose to the Ravens.
Yeah. Perry, Bees is right. It was a special NFL pack about 2 years ago. They came out with a 34-pack Bud Light cans, and it's the first, or it's 35, I can't remember. It's the first time ever buying a pack of beer and not drinking at all.
Yes. Bees wants to know, is Odell gone? I think more than likely, yes. Dalton says if the Texans clinch the playoff spot, they have won the division, but they have not clinched their spot. If Kansas City loses tonight or loses next week and Houston beats the Titans, they will be the 3rd seed as opposed to the 4th seed, which doesn't have a whole lot of bearing on things unless you consider that if they beat the Titans and the Steelers get in and the Chiefs lose, I know there's a lot of ifs here, they will be the 3rd seed and get to play the Steelers, and I think that's the ideal matchup. You want the Steelers in the playoffs, and you want to play them as the 3rd seed. That being said, you're going into Week 17, you probably rest the guys. That's what I would do.
Ravens look good. Lamar Jackson looks good. He has, I think it was like a 6-to-1 ratio for touchdown and interceptions, which I think at the end of the year, I think you should personally write a letter and apologize to Lamar Jackson.
I'm not going to do it. I will say this. Remember, Dak Prescott, remember how we don't like him? Had one of the best years as a quarterback ever. Well,
just messing with you.
Oh, I know. Let me say this. When you have football's a team game. When you put together a great roster like the Ravens have, and you maximize everybody's talent, you have a great coaching staff, good things happen. I think that's what's happened with the Ravens.
That does not mean
that being said, if you watch the Mark Andrews touchdown pass, if that was Jameis Winston, we'd be talking about how terrible he is because it was off balance and he lobbed it up there and Mark Andrews had to make a tremendous catch and anything else, that could have been an interception, blah, blah, blah. Lamar Jackson does it, everyone's like, oh my God. Well, that's the thing. Like I said, if it's if it was Jameis Winston, it wouldn't matter, right? We'd still be in on him. Like, well, you can't throw the ball like that. So again, a lot of it's perception. I think he's outperformed what I expected him to do. How about that? Is that enough of an apology for you?
No, it's not.
Too bad. That's all you're getting from me.
It's not perception. This guy.
Let's see what he does in the playoffs.
Again, leading the league in passing touchdowns, has a 6-to-1 ratio of touchdown versus interception. This guy is an NFL thrower, regardless if you like it or not. He has adjusted his game to be able to throw with the best in the NFL.
Well, they're not going to get to play Miami next year, so let's see what happens. Again, a lot of those stats.
Instead, he faced the Saints, and he faced the 49ers, and he faced New England, and he faced
the Texans,
Kansas
and he
City.
faced the Dolphins, and he faced Kansas City like they're an amazing defense. Look out.
He lost.
Yeah, but they're not an amazing defense. You can't say they faced Kansas City. Whoa, look out. My point on Lamar Jackson is this. I don't want. You're going to upset me, and then I'm going to say something I don't mean because I want to just be mean at you. But let me say this. My point on Lamar Jackson is he's outperformed what I expected him to do. That's About the highest praise I'm going to say. Everyone is all in on Lamar Jackson, like, oh, he's going to be great. I want to see long-term success because guys have great seasons. Remember Cam Newton? Cam Newton looked like an MVP in, 2015 when they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Would you take Cam Newton now? No.
No, but I would have took him that.
So I want to see sustained success. I already said I want to see more. Well, now I've seen more. Now I'm saying I want to see sustained success. And it doesn't need to be this good, but I want to see sustained success for the Ravens. All right, on to our next game. Because I'm ready to show a clip. I'm going to show you something, and I want your honest opinion. I don't want to dwell on this game too much. Again, because the Steelers lost to the Jets, and because of the way tiebreakers work, this game does not mean anything to the Titans.
Bees is with me. He says he
wants to see the clip.
He thinks that you should write a letter.
Oh, I'm writing a letter. I already did. But what I'm also going to do is play this clip for you. I want you to watch this, and I want to know, is this a hit on a defenseless receiver? They can still hear us, so feel free to comment. This, when I watch it, if this was anyone else, this is a hit on a defenseless receiver. In the clutch, Titans down 3, about 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. You catch a bomb, you would have wound up on the 40-yard line for the Saints. There's no argument here. Instead of ruling it an incomplete, they ruled it a fumble and let the Saints run it back 35 yards. When I looked at this, Drew, I was very, very displeased. That's all I can say. I was a little disappointed, man. I was a little disappointed. That's all I can say. Little disappointed.
I know. I talked to you, and you were for sure disappointed.
There's no excuse. I think if this was Michael Thomas catching the ball and you have Kevin Byard coming in to smash him, or if this was Alvin Kamara, this is a flag. You might even have an ejection on your hands. Instead, it was a Titan receiver. When I talk about small markets not getting calls, that's exactly what this was. A small market team making a catch against a more popular team like the Saints had, and the call not coming in. You can't tell me you weren't looking at this. It was down the field. Somebody's watching this and said, no, that was clean.
I just don't understand how he made a football move to make it a fumble. That's what it wasn't even a catch. It wouldn't. He caught the ball. He landed on his feet. Maybe took a step with the defender wrapped around him, but that's not a football move. It's not.
No, I agree. It's not a football move, number one.
To say something. That's why I stopped talking.
Sorry. I was reading a couple of these comments. I'm still flabbergasted, and that's the only word I can come up with. Flabbergasted that the Titans got screwed that hard. But then again, we get Jerome Boger and this ref crew multiple times a year. It seems like every year it costs us 2 wins. And I'm not saying the Titans win this game, okay? Even if they score, the Saints can come back and score 2.
Yeah. And see, I thought I liked Scott. I thought I liked him. But he goes off in comments, says, sorry, but the student beats the teacher tonight, beats with the upset. I know he's talking about Matt Nagy, and I know he's talking about Andy Reid. That's
okay.
I know that's what he's doing.
It's just not happening. I disagree with that. It's just not happening, Scott. But we'll see.
Understand, Scott? I thought me and you were buddies.
And Sean also says he thinks that Lamar Jackson is a fool, just like Tom Brady. I'm not sure where you're going with that. But I'll say this: I think right now those are the two most likely guys to get to the playoffs. Them and Patrick Mahomes, or get to the Super Bowl for the AFC. I think it's a 3-horse race, probably.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean they're all playing well, or they're all playing well enough that I think they could all be in the Super Bowl right now. My last thing on the Saints, we don't have to dwell on this game. This is an important win for them because now they're still in the race for the NFC first seed, and that's incredibly important. And the NFL wants that drama going into Week 17. But before I remove the tinfoil hat here, Drew, like I said, this was just a case of it's okay for the Titans to lose, and I think the NFL has a bit of a credibility problem. I don't think you can officiate like this and still expect people to stay bought in on it. And the Saints had the same thing last year. It was okay for them to lose because we want the new market in LA to go to the Super Bowl with the Rams.
Yeah.
But they've chewed up all their goodwill. The Saints, after this play for me, it's dead. I don't want to hear any more complaints about not getting that call because this one bailed you out today.
There is... I know you're a Titans fan. We all know you're a Titans fan. So it's a little bit deeper of a wound than everybody else. And my only comment to that is we're not talking about a game decision made because of bad referee call to go to a Super Bowl. We're just talking about a terrible call that's been happening.
And I know it didn't
happening all year long to every single one of these teams.
I disagree.
It was a terrible call. I agree. It came to be your team. I do agree that it needs to be changed.
If that was Tyreek Hill, you would be on the road right now to go shoot somebody on the Saints.
You're talking about a game that realistically for your team is unmeaningful.
Wound up not meaning anything. But if the Steelers beat the Jets, this could potentially have an impact on it. And I know it didn't. Ultimately, it did not. And I knew that watching this game at home because I'm watching the Jets play against the Steelers. But the Titans don't know that on the field, number one. And number two, the refs don't know that. Everything else. The other thing that I disagree with you is you said this happens to everybody. No, I think the opposite actually happens where when in doubt, they throw the flag when it comes to a defenseless receiver. In this case...
Oh, I didn't say that
didn't come in.
Play exactly, that official call... Bad calls happen to every team. Every team.
Well, that you're right on. But when it comes to
said.
this, and as sensitive as they are about player safety and everything else, but it's okay for some guys to take the hits and it's not okay for others to take the hits, I think that's where you draw the line. They have made it very clear that if you have a hit like this to a defenseless receiver, we're throwing the flag regardless of intent and everything else. You just didn't see it in this game. And I again... It didn't wind up mattering, but watching it, it's impossible for me to look at this and say the NFL isn't slanted, at least in some direction, towards a result that they want.
Ken Wright, it is game time. My Chiefs just started.
Are they behind the Bears yet? Is the student overtaking the master?
No, but it doesn't matter. I have to watch every bit of this game.
And Martavis says, don't worry, the Saints will get screwed in the playoffs. Well, they have the bad karma now. I'm not going to feel bad when they do. I'm going to say, see, remember this? Remember? And no one's going to remember it but me.
I told you.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Panthers-Colts. Why did you pick the Panthers? That's my takeaway from this game. Why did you pick the Panthers?
Because you picked the Colts and I wanted to believe in Will Grier and I made a mistake.
Okay. I don't think it's a mistake. I just think a young quarterback, well, obviously in this scenario it is when you think about the score, but a young quarterback on the road, first game they're playing, 16 weeks under the other team's belt, 15 weeks under the other team's belt, whatever. It wasn't a good performance, but are you surprised? I don't know.
No.
I would have liked to see a little bit more. On the other hand,
I thought, well, they did feed the rock to Christian McCaffrey. I just thought it would be like...
Well, he had 15 receptions, too.
Yeah.
He led the team in receptions.
He literally had every ball thrown to him or given to him. I mean, it was a very...
He had 119 of their 220 yards passing. It was a good day for McCaffrey. He had more receptions than the rest... Or he had more yards than the rest of the team put together.
It's all his fault for not winning this.
Oh, yeah. It's all on him. As the other thing I can say is the Colts had a good game. They put it together. Jacoby Brissett didn't really light the world up, only 119 yards to the air, but this wasn't about the air. This is about getting out in front and just running up the score. I mean, they ran with Marlon Mack, which I thought was a mistake when you're talking about a guy having a broken hand and them running the ball with him. I think you probably could have gone in another direction, especially because you believe in these other three running backs in the system. But it got the job done, and obviously he came out of this one okay. So, bygones be bygones. The Colts got a good win, even if it's not necessarily an important win. I think this is one that the franchise can build on going forward. I don't have a whole lot of commentary on this game. The Colts won, but again, they're out of the playoffs. The Panthers lost, but again, they're out of the playoffs.
Sorry, watching the game. Next game. A game that a lot of people were like, this game's not going to be fun to watch. The Bengals and the Miami Dolphins. We're wrong. This game was actually a great game to watch. You saw Andy Dalton and Ryan Fitzpatrick, two savvy veterans. Something I also called on Friday's show is they're going to go out there and air it out and have a blast. And being honest with you, the way that I saw Andy Dalton and Ryan Fitzpatrick play, both those guys deserve starting roles next year in the NFL and some team.
Yes. I agree.
And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but man.
What a performance.
Yeah.
You just need this 16 or 17 weeks, and then they'd be great players. So,
exactly.
One thing I will say is when you hear me criticize teams, when I say, oh, well, they did well against the Dolphins, like Dak Prescott, like Lamar Jackson, this is what I'm talking about. Take it with a grain of salt, because even with this underperforming offense, we saw Andy Dalton put up almost 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Again, when you play a weaker schedule, you have good results.
Ran for a 2-point conversion to tie it up.
Yeah, and they went to overtime. I thought this one was over. I thought the Dolphins had it in hand. Good on them for actually winning the game, even though the Bengals brought it close. A little bit of implications for the draft pick. Now the Dolphins move to 4, and the Bengals are officially the first overall pick. So props to them for already ruining Joe Burrow's career.
What is Trubisky doing? I'm sorry.
That's what the Bears fans have been saying all year long. Welcome to the party.
He just ran and he tried to pile drive his shoulder into a defender. I gotta keep talking about this.
Effort. It's effort, Drew. That's what I want to see is effort. No, I'm just kidding.
No, that's end your career kind of move
in a game that you're already eliminated for the playoffs. But hey, whatever. Final thoughts on this game? Anything you want to take away from the Bengals and Dolphins?
The only thing that I want to take away has really nothing to do with this game. It was Miami getting rid of all this talent. When you look at the play from Mika Fitzpatrick and you look at the play from Kenyon Drake, I understand going for draft picks, but you can't give away talent like this because both of them are succeeding at high levels. They are. Kenyon Drake got injured, man.
No, that I understand.
Prior to that, when he first got there, he showed up, played great, got hurt. Now he's healthy, played another great game.
Sometimes you got to cycle out guys too, because sometimes it's just not going to work. The attitude, everything else. But I understand what you're saying. It's so hard
to replace good talent. I get what they're doing. It makes sense, but man, it looks like
hindsight's 20/20.
A couple of these, like Tunsil, looks like a great move because Tunsil's not tearing it up over.
Tunsil looks like a great move for the Dolphins. I agree with that. But the Kenyon Drake thing, yes, he's tearing it up. But what did he do for the Dolphins? Not a whole lot. Sometimes guys just got to get out of your system, and guys are never going to work for your team.
Fix your offensive line.
Sure, and I'm the first guy to agree with that. But I don't hate trading Kenyon Drake. Again, the Cardinals are finding a way to use him. All I can say about the Dolphins is this is a 2-year rebuild. If they draft Tua Tagovailoa with that 4th overall pick, or regardless if somebody jumps them, I think you can almost sit him a year and play Ryan Fitzpatrick through the end of this contract, because you're not going to have the roster to win right now. Why put an injury-prone quarterback out there just to get mauled? That's going to be next year. I'm going to say that 100 times.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it 100 times for Tua. Especially when he lands in the Dolphins.
Let's go to the next game where the Pittsburgh Steelers face the New York Giants. You called this game, but then did not.
But I couldn't pull the trigger. I couldn't pull the trigger. I said this is going to be tough for the Steelers. I said the Jets are going to battle them. And that's exactly what happened. Props to Sam Darnold. Even though it wasn't his best game, he did enough to get the win. He made a nice throw to Robbie Anderson to get this touchdown and did well against a good defense, which we haven't seen him do. I'm with Martavis saying that Andy Dalton needs to change the scenery. Maybe, just maybe, the Steelers think about signing Andy Dalton and moving on from Ben Roethlisberger.
Welcome to Kansas City, Terrell Suggs.
Should have been two-tone blue. That's all I can say.
Baby blue?
What do you think about that? Andy Dalton to the Steelers.
Baby blue.
Could you see Andy Dalton on the Steelers if it's time to move on from Big Ben? Because my point on the Steelers
only if he retires.
Is you say ride it out. The injuries have been there now.
Oh, I agree.
He's getting older. Everything else.
They're not gonna.
Do you stay proactive? Because you're not going to have the draft pick. You were almost a playoff team. Maybe you get Jake Fromm or you get Jake Eason from Washington.
I mean, that is something down there. They might still take a draft pick somewhere for a quarterback, but it all depends on what Big Ben wants to do.
You ride with Roethlisberger.
Yeah, because
first things first.
You're going to, right? I mean, that's just what it is at this point.
On one hand, I agree, but on the other hand, I say with Andy Dalton, this team's probably cruising to a playoff berth. Even though they're probably still a wild card, I think they get there. I just don't think that the Bengals have maximized what they can get out of Andy Dalton. I think the Steelers, when you talk about Mike Tomlin and what he's done with his offensive scheme, maybe it is time to move on from Big Ben. I don't know. And it's always tough to say when you have a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, unless it's Eli, then it's pretty easy. But everywhere else, you have a 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, you want to believe that it's going to be better. You want to believe that he's going to stick around. But he's approaching 40.
Yeah.
He's starting to have injuries roll in.
Yeah.
Do you get proactive as the Steelers, or do you say that this roster with a healthy Big Ben gets there next year? And can we keep him healthy? I don't know. They're in a tough spot.
Yeah, they are. Damon says, screw Trubisky. We need a real quarterback and a better offensive coordinator like Jim Harbaugh or Ron Rivera.
If you're going to get Jim Harbaugh, you might as well try to get the best running quarterback you can get.
Neither
I think
one
that's
of
the best
those
way
are
to win
offensive
situations.
coordinators, by the way. Jim Harbaugh.
Harbaugh was a quarterback. Yeah, he basically set up the.
He was a special teams coordinator. Let's not ignore that.
Okay, so he was a special teams coordinator, but he also ran the offense with Colin Kaepernick and had a huge effort. But yes, Rivera is not an offensive guy.
Harbaugh's not an offensive coordinator.
He set up the scheme with Colin Kaepernick, and that's why when Colin Kaepernick left, they had considerably less.
I was thinking John.
Okay.
That's my fault. I was throwing John in there. I probably even read John. Jim, he's not. They're not leaving, and I don't think he's going to leave Michigan to be a coordinator.
No,
that's not going to happen, man.
Right.
Sorry, that's on me.
You're good.
I read
You're
John,
good.
not Jim.
You're good. Maybe Ron Rivera as a head coach would kind of turn things around for the Bears, but
Sean, correct. McCoy is not playing. He is again a healthy scratch to save him for the postseason. So correct.
Rivera's also a 4-3 guy, and you don't want to go through switching a defense that's already, even though they had a bit of a down year for them, you don't want to switch a coordinator on them. I think you just stick with Matt Nagy at this point. The hands are almost tied. You got to stay at 34. I don't think bringing in a 4-3 coach for a 34 defense that has the potential to be as good as the Bears do is the right move.
Next game.
Giants and Redskins. Huge implications. Now the Redskins have basically locked up the second overall pick. It's very important, to them at least, because now Chase Young, who is likely to be there, is going to be on this defensive line that's going to face those big boys from Alabama and Chase Young on top of it. It's a quick turnaround. They just drafted Montez Sweat. He hasn't quite lived up to expectations. We haven't ragged on him like we've ragged on Cleveland Farrell, but he hasn't been very good. Right. He has not lit the world on fire. If they get someone like Chase Young, is that the first step in the rebuild for the Redskins? Yes, is the answer. Because you're getting a generational talent. He's Nick Bosa, but fast. Yeah. It's insane how talented this kid's going to be coming out of Iowa State. He might be the best kind of talent we've seen since Jadeveon Clowney coming out of college. And I know Clowney didn't live up to expectations in the pros, but still, he's he's a defensive lineman that has been absolutely dominant in college. You have to take him, and you have to believe that he's going to fix things on this defense.
Yeah, you would think. I think the issue right now is Haskins. How bad is that ankle? Supposedly, Dan Snyder came to him and said, "Don't go out there and play again." So maybe it's not that big. Maybe Haskins has a chance to go in there. Excuse me. I might do that again. There's a lot of issues with the Redskins. At this point, you just bring in players that can play the football.
Yeah,
and. You're gonna have a head coach change. Obviously, it started going on. Bill Callahan will not be the head coach there,
and I agree there.
And so that will change everything, because if you bring in someone like, let's just say, Mike McCarthy, he's gonna want to change some stuff on that opposite side of the ball, and Dwayne Haskins might not be his guy.
Yeah. And I agree with that. As for the Giants winning this game, good showing out of Daniel Jones, good showing out of Saquon Barkley. The boys are back. Hopefully something to build on going into next season. I don't think the win hurts them as bad, because I think Daniel Jones is for sure their quarterback, and I think it might even help them, because the Redskins are very likely out of the market for a quarterback, even though you said somebody might change it up. I don't see it happening, especially when Joe Burrow's off the board. I don't see them spending pick number 2 on a quarterback. If you're going to trade, you trade up to the Giants. More often than not, you're going to trade to the Giants when the Redskins get stuck. Everyone that wants to trade for a quarterback is going to say, the Redskins aren't taking one, the Giants aren't taking one, I'll go trade for pick 3 because it'll be a little bit cheaper. The Giants might have put themselves in position with this win to trade out of this pick and get the most from a trade perspective for a potential suitor for whoever likes Tua or one of these other quarterbacks in the draft this year.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see.
I feel like I'm Troy Aikman during the Cowboys' loss. I'm too distracted on something else going on.
Try to bring it in, man. They're going to be okay. They're playing the Bears. Come on, they're going to be fine.
Dude, it doesn't matter. I want to watch every ounce of it. You knew you were going to lose to the Saints, but you still watched every ounce of that game.
Well, until the ref showed up, I thought we might have had a chance there. Damien also says the Giants and Redskins game made the Cowboys and Eagles look like a crap bowl. I agree with you. Sometimes when you're playing bad defenses, a lot of points go on the board. That's all I can say about this game. We'll move on. Let's talk about the Lions and Broncos, a game that did not matter to me in the slightest. Matt Patricia's coming back. Vic Fangio likely to come back.
Right.
Takeaways, Drew, because this game is the perfect one to put Jerome Boger and his crew on, okay?
It looks like everyone that, as far as Denver fans go, that they're excited about Drew Lock. He seemed to come out there and play pretty well against a Lions defense that really isn't playing for a whole lot. The coach already said the organization says the coach is coming back. So really these guys are kind of just playing for their jobs, but you don't really see a whole lot of that. Blau looked, again, very bland. That one game coming out was probably about as much shine as that guy will ever get.
Matt Stafford's not worried about his job in training camp next year.
It's just at this point, I still think it's a trap, Broncos fans. I think you're going to fall in love with Brandon Allen and Drew Lock, and you're going to think you're going to be fine, and you're going to move forward, and you're going to probably pass on someone that's decent.
B says, breaking, Pat Mahomes carted off the field, but we do have it on here. We're on a slight delay. I guess we'll see here in a second. Something tells me that might not be the truth, though. We'll find out here in a minute. If so, Chiefs, dead in the water, because I don't really think without your starting quarterback anyone can win and that in the playoffs. And I think that's going to show up if the Steelers get there too.
Let me tell you, if that happens, I'm getting off the show right now. I just want you to know.
B says Khalil Mack and a sack that landed awkwardly. I guess we'll see here in a second.
Are you just mad about that sidearm pass?
If it does happen, that's going to be the most legendary comment ever. You're just mad about, oh, no, God.
You realize I will walk off, and I will have to go drink myself somewhere.
I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see. Do you want to say anything else about the Lions and the Broncos?
Nope, I said my piece.
Yeah, me too. Gross. That's all I can say. Both these teams will be back next year. How about that? I didn't. But Jerry says, where will the Lions pick? It's likely to be somewhere around 5 or 6. Then again, they have 3 wins at this point. They could lose their last game. Teams like the Giants and teams like the Dolphins could outshoot them in the last week. It could be anywhere between 4 and 7 at this point. It's hard to say until Week 17's over. They're going to get a good player, and that's what you want to see. I think it's going to be Jeff Okudah. You heard it here first. More than maybe. I don't know. Maybe someone's beat me to it in a mock draft. But I think they're going to go draft the corner out of Ohio State with that pick.
Bees, you're just jealous that I have Pat Mahomes and you have Trubisky? Is that his name?
Mitch.
Yes, I was worried, man, because I'm on delay here.
Mitch too risky. Let's talk about the Oakland Raiders playing the Chargers. How'd you feel about this game? It's the AFC West. It's your division. You've got something nice to say about these teams, right?
Yeah.
They played today. That's what I have to say.
Yeah. Carr looked good. 26 out of 30, 291 yards, touchdown, ran for 1. Renfro looks great. I mean, it's exciting, right, for Raiders fans? They're still alive.
Let's take it to next year. Just like we said,
They're
it's
still
a
alive.
multi-year rebuild.
They can still make the playoffs. Yes, they can still make the playoffs, man. They can still make it. Steelers lose.
Titans
lose. And the Colts
Well, the Titans have the tiebreaker against them.
win.
Is that true? I think they're mathematically eliminated because
they're
they'll have the same record as the Titans, and the Titans beat them straight up.
They're still mathematically still in it. Yep, 100%.
Okay, I guess I'll take your word for it. But even though I think you're wrong, I don't know enough to disagree with you. So I'll take your word for it.
I promise you, because the 3 teams that were still capable of winning.
I saw that going into today.
Into that was the Browns, the Raiders, and another team that I can't think of right now.
Okay. All right. Well, my takeaway from this game is, yes, good performance out of Derek Carr. Is it enough to save his job? I'd say with the cap hit, likely so. I think he's going to be there at least one more. Then after that, who knows? It all goes to the wind. We kind of said before the Raiders are a multi-year rebuild. We're starting to see some of the plus side of things when we're talking about the Raiders. But we've seen some negatives from this team, too. I still think they're at least another great offseason away from being a playoff team. Even though they're in the running and everything else, I think this team, when you factor out some of like the short-term variance, this is going to be a squad that's going to need some things to break their way or have a great offseason to be a playoff team next year. So we'll see what happens with them. As for the Chargers, disappointing, man, but it's the Chargers. So disappointment kind of comes with the territory, right? Have we seen the last of Phillip Rivers in L.A.?
Probably.
You think so? Again, could be another great free agent quarterback that could land somewhere and be an important piece.
Titan.
No.
Yeah.
Don't think that was like 6 years ago. I don't think it's going to happen.
now.
That was before we drafted Mariota.
You're going to get Tom Brady.
Yeah, we're going to get all those guys. We're going to have 3 amazing. We're going to re-sign Tannehill, Brady, and Rivers. So we're good when someone gets hurt.
Yeah.
Good to know. Again, Chargers are disappointed. They're going to have a good draft pick. We'll see if they can refresh this team. I think it's going to be a tackle for them. They got to fix this offensive line, whether Phillip Rivers is there or not, because you can't be this bad and expect to succeed in the NFL. We'll see what happens with them. Let's talk about the Cowboys and the Eagles, because Damian was saying it was a snooze fest. He didn't love it, but even though it wasn't like the sexiest game and there weren't 45 points on the board, I like to see some good defense. Even though they struggled, there were a lot of drops.
Winston played really well. He was 31 of 40, 319 yards, a touchdown. He has all of his weapons minus his tight ends are gone. I mean, he played well. He put this game on his shoulders and played well.
I agree, and I think the receivers stepped up too. I got to say, good job by the Eagles stepping up in a big moment.
Goddard kind of shined a little bit behind Zach Ertz, which is always pretty hard to do. Nine catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. He looked really good. Sanders kind of showed his way too. The run game's missing. I think this is more of a game where it's like this is exactly your worries as Cowboys fans about why you shouldn't sign Dak Prescott to a large $1 million or $35 million contract.
This is the apex. This is probably the best the team is going to be, and you're talking about having a 7-win season right now. Maybe they get to 8 after next week, but my point is this is where the team should be performing. This should be your 12-win scenario.
That
You've
game
got the
they
defense.
had last week is the game they should have had this game right here.
You've got the big names on defense. You've got Amari Cooper. You brought in Randall Cobb to be a number 2. Michael Gallup is stepping up. You've got Ezekiel Elliott. The offensive line's playing well. Dak Prescott's playing well in spurts. And you've got 7 wins. This is the apex. Like you said, they're going to pay Dak Prescott, and then the team will start to deteriorate from there. It's going to be questioned. Can Dak kind of continue his upward move? Because he has had some bright spots against bad teams this year. Can he kind of continue his progression as a young quarterback in the NFL and get to that next level? Because if he can, maybe it works out for him. Maybe. But if he can't, and I don't think he's going to get a whole lot better than what we're seeing right now, you're probably talking about the Cowboys not being that good of a team here coming up.
Scott says Wentz was killing the short pass. Yeah, I know, I get it. And it wasn't like throw the ball out, but when you don't have those number 1 weapons and you're not turning the ball over and you only miss 9 passes, regardless if they're 1-yard passes.
Yeah.
This is huge.
This is, please, for the love of God, hang on to this.
Yeah, exactly. It was a great outing for Wentz.
I totally agree with that. The Eagles showed up, and kind of like Jonathan said in our comments last Friday, he said this is the game they put the dog masks on. They come in, they play hard, and that's exactly what happened. They scored those early points, went up 10-0, and the Cowboys struggled to catch up.
Yeah.
So I give credit where it's due, and I think the Eagles played a great game, even though I don't think they're going to be an amazing playoff game to watch. I think this is an important game for their franchise that shows, hey, this just was not our year. We had some injuries in the secondary. We had some injuries on the offense, like all over the place, line and wide receiver. Next year, if we get a little healthier, maybe we can make a dent.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next game.
Sorry about the Cardinals upsetting the Seahawks, which, as crazy as that sounds, maybe the Seahawks go into this with less to play for because they beat the 49ers next week. You still win the division.
Yeah, but, I mean, Murray went down. He had Brett Hundley in there playing. Kenyon Drake, 166 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he dominated this game. This was as much as we talk about how the Cardinals need to fix their offensive line, when you look at like Chase Edmonds and you look at like Kenyon Drake, all kind of in spurts finding huge running holes in this offense, is Kingsbury doing something right over there to make this offense a scary offense in a year or 2 away? Well,
we've criticized the Dolphins, we've criticized the Raiders and said this roster is not in a spot to succeed. The Cardinals aren't either. And we've been a little tough on Cliff Kingsbury. A lot of people have, for saying, oh, you drafted Kyler Murray, everything should be fixed. This is just a perfect example of a team needing more time to be better than they are. This is an important win. It's a good win, and it shows you kind of that flash of what you can see, even without Kyler Murray. With Kingsbury, I think this shows you that if we put the right roster around there, we have the leadership we need. Kyler Murray can still be our guy. It was a hamstring injury, so hopefully he'll be okay, especially when we talk about going into next season. It's an important win, and it's a good one you want to see. That's all I can say. It's a building win, even though it doesn't really affect a whole lot. This is something that, again, matters to the Cardinals, and that's important.
Yeah.
This is the game you want to see them step up in, even though the season's over.
Statistically, there was nothing really exciting about what the Seahawks did. Nothing really spoke out to you. Russell Wilson went 16 to 31, 169 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, realistically, nothing. Is this just a flop of... You said it. You know they don't have nothing to play for. Is this realistically a flop of the Seahawks?
A little bit, yes. On the other hand, I think it might just be a case of letting teams hang around, eventually biting in the ass. Because we talk about the Seahawks week in and week out, and it's like 20-13 they're winning, and 20-26. And they're good enough that they get away with it. We don't criticize them the same way we criticize some of these other teams for letting them hang around, especially me. But I think that's happened a little bit, and they finally just got punched in the mouth by a team in their division. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think the Seahawks should have played better, but then again, it doesn't matter. You beat the 49ers next week, you still win the division. And maybe the Packers win out, and maybe you don't get the bye instead, and it hurts in the long run. Or maybe they don't, and maybe you get to go on and you still get to be the second seed.
These are one of these games when it comes into the postseason and we're or off season, and we're sitting there talking about what the Cardinals have for next year.
Well, they beat the Seahawks last year.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what this is just one of those games that realistically I think it faults more to the Cardinals than it does the Seahawks. I know you should have won this game as a Seahawks fan, but I think we'll get too hyped up on the Cardinals, and then we'll see again another below 500 season out of the Cardinals. Hopefully not for Cardinal fans, but that's kind of just how I feel about it. Let's get into primetime games. We know we got the Chiefs game going on right now. yes! And Kansas City just scored a touchdown.
Actually, it happened 5 minutes ago. Scott said that Mahomes was going to rush it into the end zone.
Yes, I am very...
On a delay, I know.
Delayed here. I'm sacrificing, okay? Does it make a difference? Obviously, everyone knows I'm picking Kansas City. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like Kansas City, or I don't love Kansas City particularly, but I think, I let it flow through me. But yeah, I mean, they have to be the heavy favorite here. When you look at the way the Bears have played, I know they've played a little bit better, kind of like Damian was saying in the past year. They played a little bit better these past couple weeks. The Bears aren't going to have any chance in this. Kansas City needs this win because the loss will put Houston ahead of them in the playoff race, and they don't want to play the Bills, I don't think. That's not the kind of matchup you want to play a team like the Titans that's defense has kind of slid downhill, and you want to get into a shootout with a team like that. I know the Titans beat them heads up last time, but if it's me and I'm Andy Reid, I'm like, we would really prefer to play a team that's going to play offense. Or you'd rather play the Steelers if they get in, and you get to play an offense that can do absolutely nothing, and that's not going to hurt your team. I think the 3 seed's incredibly important for Kansas City. I do. I think that's the biggest takeaway. As for the Bears, you're playing for pride. I just want to see Mitch Trubisky have a good day against a defense that, even though they played well these past couple weeks like we talked about, still has some weaknesses. I want to see Trubisky throw for 278 yards, 2 touchdowns, and only 1 interception.
David says he wants to know why the Bears are even playing Saturday night.
Didn't I say that?
They deserve it. They're playing right now.
Wasn't I saying, like, why is this game a primetime game still?
I think it was actually a Monday night game, if I'm correct.
I thought they didn't flex Monday night games. I'm not sure, but it could have been. I'm not sure.
I feel like it was a Monday night game, but could be wrong. Who knows?
Would you put this game on Monday night?
Last year and the end of the year, yeah.
Well, okay, absolutely. But we're not playing last year. I'm talking about like 3 weeks ago.
That's why they flexed
exactly.
it.
I would have flexed it to like Saturday. No, there were good games on Saturday. I would have flexed this to noon on Sunday. It would have been right next to the Jaguars and Falcons. No, I'm just kidding. This is still a playoff team. This is still an important game. There's still something on the line. As for the Bears, they're still not way out of it. I mean, yes, they're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but what I'm saying is they're not a team that has no hope against the Kansas City Chiefs. They could pull an upset. Yeah. They could show up on defense.
They could.
Is it going to happen? No, it's not. I'm taking the Chiefs.
I'm taking the Chiefs too. Monday night.
But it could. All right, Monday night. Finally, a Monday night game worth talking about. Packers need this one. Seahawks just lost. You've got the Saints that, even though they pulled it out, are still in the running to get a bye. And then you've got the 49ers that, again, even though they beat the Rams this week, was a struggle. Packers need this one. And so do the Vikings, because a win for the Vikings puts them in an opportunity to win the division.
Yeah.
Everything's up in the air in this. Seeding, everywhere. There's so many scenarios. I'm not even going to go through it. Both teams need to win.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great. I think this is going to be a great game of football. I'm going to go with the Vikings. I think they've played a little bit better. Even though I'm not wild about Dalvin Cook being hurt, I am wild about Madison being their backup because he's been almost as effective as Dalvin Cook has been on the field.
And Adam Thielen get another game where he looks like he might be healthy.
As for the Packers, they struggled with the Redskins. They've struggled in like 3 successive weeks. I'm going to bet on that continuing.
Yeah.
And I don't feel great about this. We talked about this before, and this is a coin toss. Yeah. I don't think either one of us feel great about either one of these teams. Yeah. I think they're both very good teams that could win 49 out of 51 or 49 out of 100 of these.
I agree.
And I think I'm going to go Vikings here. So, do you want to go that direction? Do you want to go with the Packers? It's entirely your choice.
I keep on denying Aaron Rodgers and his capability of winning these important tight games, and every time I go against him, he seems to prove me wrong over and over again. And I look at the quarterback scenario and just with Kirk Cousins, and I know he can show up and be huge, but I look at Aaron Rodgers and you're like, this game is a must-win game for Aaron Rodgers, and I believe that he can will it to be done. Okay. And with Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones all playing pretty well right now. I mean, obviously Devontae Adams, as long as he's healthy, plays well. I think they're going to win it. I think the Packers are going to win this game. I think they're going to go into Minnesota and win it. But do I feel like I want to put $500 on it and say, go ahead and win? I wouldn't even
Would you put $10 on it? Yeah.
And sit there and say, hey, go win it for me. I'm going to pick them. I'm going to pick them because every time I don't pick them,
it bites you in the ass.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
And I feel like I'm taking a sucker's bet here, betting on Kirk Cousins against a winning team on prime time. Like, historically, not a place he succeeds. But it's at home. I feel like the Vikings have played better football than the Packers have. I feel like the Vikings are maybe a little more motivated than the Packers are. Maybe the Packers come in with the gloves down just a little bit, and that's going to be the difference here. But I think this is going to be a great game. I think both these teams absolutely could win it. I'm going to go home field advantage. I think the Vikings win because they're at home. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot separating these teams, even though I think all things said and done, healthy Vikings probably even still better than the Packers from what we've seen out of these two teams this year. They're not, but right now I'd say it's 50-50.
All right, man. I'm going to get out of here.
Final thoughts.
Let's do it.
Final thoughts about the Chiefs game, man.
I'm ready to watch it.
Okay, my final thoughts are get through healthy and get the win. That's what the Chiefs need to do. Yeah. I don't really see Mitch Trubisky and company putting up that much of a fight, but we'll see. You never know. We get some special thanks. We'll get out of here.
Yeah, guys, thank you again for joining us. I know that we went into Sunday Night Game, and I appreciate you all being here with us. But real quickly, Chris, Frank, John, Sean, Will, Jacob, Chris, Jonathan, Scott, Ron, Bees, Brian, Perry, Dalton, Ken, Martavius, Damon, Jerry. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Damien also says pride is overrated, but you got to remember, sometimes we say they're playing for pride. Sometimes it's you're playing for the next contract. You're playing for your personal stats. That can make an effect. That's my final thoughts. We'll be back on next Friday because we're going to skip Tuesday's show. It's the holidays. We hope you spend time with your family. We'll be back on Friday to talk about Week 17 and how that's the most pivotal week. And we'll know more about these teams after the fact.
Or Saturday.
Or Saturday. That's right. I forgot about that.
We will post, let you guys know.
We'll be back. No idea when, but we'll be back. We hope you're there for that.
This week.
Sometime. We'll be back.
At some point. 6:45 Central.
Can we even promise that anymore?
No.
7:45 Eastern. Yes, we can. No, we can't. Not if we do it on Saturday. I guess we'll find out. 6:45 Central, 7:45 Eastern. We hope you can join us for that. Great show, guys. Thank you so much. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Whichever you prefer.
Happy Hanukkah.
Kwanzaa's next. Merry Kwanzaa. Whatever. We'll see you back.
Kwanzaa.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see you back.
Feliz Navidad.
At the end of the week. How about that? All right. See you next time.
See you.